Hey my friends, in this week's vlog I wanted to talk a little bit about what makes the RAV drum so special, and also what makes it different than a handpan. I'll talk a little bit about how I became involved in playing them, and what advantages this has over a handpan or other tongue drums. So let's take a look. I first became involved with RAVs when I was searching for a handpan for a reasonable price. And I had looked for a couple of years and I hadn't really found one that I could afford. And I ran across Andre's very early RAV Vast and RAV Vast 2. And I read on the old handpan forums about his first RAV drums. And these were smaller, they had less notes tuned into the tongues, but still had a beautiful sound. Eventually Andre switched to a different size shell and different sized tongues, so he was able to get a really deep, rich tone and also provide two thicknesses. And the advantage of having these two thicknesses is the thinner steel, which is the Vast 1, has a lot of overtones, it's very rich and warm. The Vast 2 is equally as beautiful, but has a little bit more projection and you hear more of the fundamental and a tiny bit less of the partials. But all of them are still present there. For me, when I first purchased one, I purchased an 8-note RAV Vast 2. And this was a very early Vast 2 when he first started to make them. As soon as I got it, I realized what quality of an instrument it was. And in my search for an instrument to busk with and perform with, this was really a turning point for me in being able to travel safely with it, and also to present something that was really of professional quality. RAV drums sound so magical because there are more than one note tuned into each tongue. A handpan typically has the primary note, the fundamental note, the octave, and then the fifth, whereas the RAV has the fundamental, octave, fifth, and then multiple partials. So when you're playing one note, you're not just getting, this is a G, you're not just getting the G, but you're getting multiple octaves of the G, a fifth, sometimes a fourth. It's almost like playing a full chord on a guitar. So that's why every note that you hit has this rich, warm sound. And because of the way these and handpans are set up structure-wise, when you're playing the center note, there's usually an octave pair. So it's making the octave G of G ring at the same time. Looking at the tongues up close, you can see that there are multiple slits cut into it. Because of these slits, the tongue is able to vibrate as a whole and also vibrate individually in each of these spaces. The beauty of this is you get not only a pure note, but an octave, fifth, and multiple partials. So you really have a full sound when you're hitting this. Now, why do I choose to perform with this, or busk with this, versus a handpan? And there's multiple reasons for that. A, it's less expensive. B, it does not come out of tune in the sun. And this is a huge problem with handpans. Handpans are amazing. I don't really even compare the two of them. They have a very different tonal quality. But when you're in the sun with a handpan, because of the way the notes are tuned, and it's based off of tension, the steel relaxes in the sun, so it comes out of tune. Whereas a RAV, based off of the weight of the tongues, the weight doesn't change despite the expansion and contraction of the steel. So you're able to play this in direct sunlight with no change in tuning. And for me, as someone who likes to play outdoors, I don't like to keep my instruments indoors and not use them or be really careful with them. This is a sturdy, compact way to bring something with a rich sound outdoors to waterfalls or busking, and not having to worry about it getting bumps or coming out of tune in the sun. It's very durable, very practical for professional traveling musicians. So this, for me, is a much more effective tool for performing live and performing on the streets. The real beauty of a RAV drum is that they're accessible to musicians of all levels. You need no musical experience to begin working with these instruments. Unlike a guitar or other chromatic instruments, these are tuned in a harmonic scale. So you're able to play right away as soon as you figure out the tapping technique, whether you poke or whether you hit with your thumb or slap. Whatever approach you have for it is correct. There's no cultural heritage you have to be mindful of. There's really not any way to damage it unless you're being very violent and hitting it with something. So you're free to express yourself however you want. And unlike a handpan, this is not going to come out of tune unless you were to hit it with a brick. I've had no tuning issues, and I've owned one for multiple years now. It does help to have some musical background if you're going to be playing with other people, but as long as you find a key that's useful for your instrument, this is in G again, and you figure out the progression of notes, you can play with anybody on any instrument. So if you're looking for an instrument that's both versatile, easy to play, and accessible to all levels, whether it's students, seasoned musicians, or just brand new players, the RAV drum is a great choice. Hope you enjoyed, and happy playing.